let's go to the polls. Prior to this week, the college football playoff released its top 25, and this was the breakdown of it. They had Tennessee 1, Ohio State and Georgia. No, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, Clemson 4, Michigan 5, Bama 6, TCU 7, Oregon 8, USC 9, and LSU 10. As you know from our breakdown, that's got all combobulated in the next week. The AP and coaches poll for this week, after all the games have been played, both have Georgia at 1, Ohio State at 2, Michigan at 3, TCU at 4, Tennessee at 5, Oregon at 6. Then the AP has LSU at 7 and USC at 8. Coaches poll has USC at 8, USC at 7, LSU at 9. Whatever.
They flip-flopped
them. At 9 in the AP, they have UCLA. AP has Bama, then Ole Miss, Clemson, Utah, Penn State, UNC. At 9 for the coaches, Ole Miss, UCLA, Bama, Clemson, Utah, UNC, Penn State. How do we break them down? I stick pretty close to the AP. I said Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee, Oregon, LSU, USC. So I'm right in line with them until number 9, where I have Ole Miss. Then I have Bama. Then I moved UCLA all the way to 11. Then I go Clemson, Utah. Then I flip-flopped Penn State and UNC, which I could go either way. That's just because I wasn't really paying attention when I typed. Muff.
You're the one that was so mad about the whole 11 to 15, and you say, I don't care. They could go either way.
Well, the whole thing, I would have if it had stayed the same, but it all got jacked up by all these losses that, it kind of sorted itself out.
I stay true to the first 5, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee. I then have LSU at 6 after a strong win against at the time, well, still is a strong team. Oregon I have at 7, USC at 8, Bama at 9, UCLA at 10, Clemson drops to 11 in mine, Ole Miss to 12. I have Penn State at 13, Utah at 14, and Texas at 15.
I still couldn't figure out, and this is for both of you, who you cut out to put Texas at 15. Did you guys drop
North
UNC?
Carolina.
Got
North
it.
Carolina.
That's where it was. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. So mine is, sorry, my page. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3, TCU 4, Tennessee at 5, Oregon 6, LSU 7, USC 8, Ole Miss 9, Bama 10, UCLA 11, Clemson 12, Penn State 13, Utah, Texas. I'm very much in line for the most part, other than a little shuffle with Muff. We're pretty much the same. We flipped Oregon, LSU. Yeah, and I was with Muff. I took UNC out and put Texas in. I think Texas has played better competition. And I don't think UNC
they just lost to Virginia. They almost lost to App State.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't argue with you. Like I said, 14, 15, 16. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And
after this week.
Yeah. And just because I was waiting for it, Penn State to 13 to me is just because their 2 losses are to 2 top 4 teams.
I don't argue that, Muff.
Yeah.
One bit. I want to go back to the top 4 conversation real quick. The loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game falls to where?
I think that depends on what else is happening.
Yes, it depends.
Let's say that everybody stays undefeated at that point. The rankings stay the same as is.
The one thing I don't know is where does the SEC play out the rest of the season? Who plays who? Because it may not be possible.
Second. That's why I'm saying. Let's say it is possible for Georgia to stay number 1.
So I think TCU moves up. If they're undefeated and one of those 2 teams loses, I think TCU becomes the 3. And
okay.
Whichever of those 2 win becomes the 2.
Right.
That Tennessee has a chance to move up to 4. And then my guess would be OSU or Michigan bumps to 5.
Right. That's I don't know all the ins and outs, but
Because I think
the
that
SEC champion, if Georgia plays to the SEC championship game, unless Georgia gets blown out, Georgia's going to be in that playoff.
Well, you make the argument that Tennessee, their one loss is to Georgia, who is the dominant number 1 team.
Mhm.
If Ohio State or Michigan has a loss to each other, neither one of those teams are as dominant as Georgia. So I think you'd say Tennessee has one loss, but their one loss is not as bad as whichever one of those they are. So that's why you move Tennessee to 4 and put Ohio State or Michigan at 5.
I think the only way Tennessee gets in, beyond what you just said, so it's like that's the way Tennessee gets in if Ohio State and Michigan
One of the teams has to lose.
blow out. Now, if Georgia loses to Bama in the game that they play,
I still think Georgia makes it. I think Georgia is a shoe-in. I think that if Georgia lost to Bama, I think they might drop behind Michigan. I don't think that a one-loss Georgia would drop up farther than that, to be honest.
are we saying that Bama is out?
Yes, Bama's absolutely out.
That
If Bama
too-
gets in, I will revolt and probably never watch sports again.
Well,
What if
Bama is only going to find their way in if a whole lot of crazy stuff happens.
If Bama beats Georgia,
That
Doesn't matter.
does not get.
they don't jump
They have
up
to
enough.
Only, like I said, only if other crazy stuff happens, like Ohio State and Michigan both lose the game prior to the game. If TCU loses a game, like
So here's one for you.
If Tennessee wins out, which they should, if Tennessee wins out, there's absolutely no way in my mind that Bama gets in and they don't.
Okay, so let me pose this to you. Ohio State beats Michigan in the game.
Okay.
Ohio State loses the Big Ten championship on a fluke, but they lose. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Both those two are out. So now you're looking at, and then Georgia loses to Alabama.
So you're saying Ohio State loses the game or wins?
Wins the game, but loses the conference championship.
I think they drop down to like 4. I think TCU moves up. I think Tennessee moves up.
Well, you said if they lose in a fluke. Like, are you talking about like they just have one of those games where they don't show up and they get beat pretty handily? Or do you mean like a fluke, like somebody kicks a game-winning field goal on them?
Game-winning field goal. Let's go with that.
So
that's not a fluke.
I don't think they fall out of there. And like if they go and they just, what was it? Not to like poke fun or nothing, but like if they have one of those games like they did against Purdue a couple years ago, where they just flat out didn't show up,
Yeah.
then yeah, you might say, look, this isn't one of the best 4 teams right now.
Right, because they're trending to play. I mean, who knows who they're going to end up playing for the Big Ten West if that plays out.
I want to know, Jim, why are you so adamant that Tennessee doesn't get in?
I'm not. I'm trying to figure out a way that you have Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama in the playoff. That's what I'm trying to walk you guys into, and I can't do it. So that's why I'm kind of like, well, okay, what about this?
Alabama can. I think it's going to be Georgia, Ohio State. If TCU wins out, TCU, Tennessee, because I think Ohio State beats Michigan.
Yeah, I think Tennessee has to win out.
I think Michigan falls out for that. Tennessee has 3 games coming up, and it's like South Carolina, Vanderbilt, maybe, or someone. It's like 3 games that on paper they should win.
Yeah.
Buy me some time. I'll look and see who they actually play. Make sure.
The problem with the Big Ten is the rest of the Big Ten is not providing other top 5 and top 10 matchups.
I agree.
That's where the Big Ten falls out, and that's why whoever goes to the Big Ten championship from the Big Ten East is going to be representing the Big Ten in the playoff unless something crazy happens in the championship game.
Alex is getting serious.
So to Alex's point about Tennessee, they've got Missouri at home this week, and then they go to South Carolina and to Vandy.
All right.
So 3 games that, like he said, should definitely win convincingly. But even if they go to the conference championship game, if they lose to Georgia, they're out. You lost to them twice. You're not a top 4 team anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. That's the polls.